stuff? Okay, good. Hey guys, happy Wednesday. It's Wednesday, right?
Yes.
Okay, happy Wednesday. Welcome back to Wake Up with the Walkers. We come to you live every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific. Last week, in case you missed it, we made honey sweetened cherry limeade as well as single serving lemonade. So if you missed that video, you can watch it anytime on my IGTV, on my YouTube, or on my Facebook. So you've got plenty of options. Today, I'm making a recipe that I just released for you guys on Monday. Gluten-free, grain-free, nut-free, dairy-free ice cream sandwiches. Not like cookies that we're putting ice cream between, like the classic chocolate cakey cookie layer. Used to have holes on the top, but we didn't do that. And vanilla ice cream in the middle. Free of all the things, free of refined sugar. They're amazing. They disappeared in our house like that. Asher was actually disappointed that I was making them vanilla today because he asked if I would make them chocolate chip mint the next time we made them, and I forgot. So he'll still eat these. But let's get started. We are live. Ask away any questions that you want to ask. Ryan is here, so he can tell me the questions, and I will get to as many as I can. One quick housekeeping thing before we start. I mentioned yesterday that Ryan and I were going to do our Ask Us Anything live Q&A tonight at 8, but we forgot that Asher actually has something that he has to be at until 8, so we're gonna go live tomorrow. So don't be there at 8 tonight Pacific, because we won't be. Tomorrow, 8 p.m. Pacific. I know it's a little late for you guys on the East Coast, but we can't get a word in edgewise with our children if we don't do it until after bedtime. So that is what we're doing. All right, the recipe is already up on the blog, againstallgrain.com, so I'm not gonna go through measurements and stuff today. You can just go and look all of that up, but if you have any questions about ingredients or anything, let me know. So we're gonna start with sustainable palm shortening. My favorite brand is Tropical Traditions. I've been supporting their small family run business out of the Philippines that I have loved supporting for years and years. Also, you can get Spectrum, and if you don't want to use palm shortening at all, go ahead and use unsalted butter. But use 3 tablespoons instead of a quarter cup. Okay, and then we have coconut sugar, or palm sugar, or coconut crystals. They go by many different names. And 2 tablespoons of light colored honey. I talk about my honey all the time, but this is my favorite. It's raw, it's kind of creamy. It's got a really nice, very mild honey flavor, which is why I choose and why I specify in a lot of my recipes to use light colored. It's just so that everything doesn't taste like honey. It doesn't overpower it as much. The lighter the color of the honey, the lighter the flavor. All right, so we're gonna cream that together for a minute while I crack my eggs. Go ahead.
So Mary's asking where the shirt is.
Oh, Mary is asking where my shirt is from. It is from Anthropologie, but from like 3 years ago. I bought it for Kezia's first birthday. It's oranges. It's my favorite. But yeah, you won't be able to find it. Sorry, unfortunately. That's the only thing. You guys ask a lot about what I'm wearing, and most of the time what I'm wearing is at least a couple of years old, unless it's something that I found at Target, in which case I will always tell you. But keep asking, but I've always feel bad because I'm like, you can't get it anymore. Yes?
All right, so Laura is wondering, can you sub flax eggs?
So I think Laura is asking if you can sub flax eggs for the eggs to make this vegan. I haven't tried it with this one, but because it's only 2 eggs and because we're going in a very thin layer anyways, we're not looking for like this big fluffy tall cake. And we're freezing it. I think a flax egg would work really well. I also think aquafaba would be a good option as well. So feel free to experiment a bit if you want to keep this vegan. You'd have to substitute out the honey, obviously, as well. But if you just have an egg allergy, that could be an option. Definitely give it a shot. Okay, so 2 eggs, vanilla extract, tiny bit of fresh lemon juice, excuse me. Okay, and then get that going again while I combine my dry ingredients, which are very simple. I wanted to keep this nut-free for you guys. So we have cocoa powder. I like to use Dutch process, which means that it's processed with alkali. It just gives you a very, very dark, deep chocolate color, but also flavor. You can use raw cacao in this. You can just use whatever cocoa powder you have on hand. It's totally fine. Okay, and then we have our coconut flour, half a cup. There was a little typo when the recipe first went out. The cup was missed accidentally. So thank you to those of you guys who asked and wrote in. We fixed it. Stop this for a second because everything is stuck at the bottom.
By the way, Keisha's asking where the kiddos are.
Ah, yeah, so upstairs. Oh, sorry. Question is where the kids are today. I kind of didn't really give the call out that we were doing this because since it's a new recipe, I wanted to be able to talk through everything with you guys. So up in the playroom. They might, you never know. They always tend to come in at some point.
And I think it's Senora Monica is asking.
So Senora Monica is asking the difference between palm shortening and butter in terms of the measurement or the difference in what they are. Well, so, hold on. I tend to use palm shortening in place of butter to keep things dairy-free. They really both respond very similarly in recipes, except for butter's a bit, it melts a little bit faster, it has a little bit lower of a melting point, so sometimes I'll go 3 tablespoons, so if something calls for a 1/4 cup of palm shortening, I usually like to reduce it by 1 tablespoon. But you can use them interchangeably. All right, so now, okay, sorry, I stopped midway through there. So we have arrowroot, coconut flour, and cocoa powder. And then our leaveners are baking soda and baking powder, and then just a dash of salt. If your coconut flour is overly clumpy, just break it up with a fork. I do suggest always doing that before you measure, just so you get an accurate measurement. Okay, so now that that's all creamed together, just in case you're joining late, we're making dairy-free, gluten-free, and grain-free classic ice cream sandwiches. In here so far, we have sustainable palm shortening, hi Ash, eggs, honey, coconut sugar. That's it, right? I'm like, that's it. You can look at the recipe at againstallgrain.com. So the next thing we're gonna do is just alternate between our dry ingredients and some coconut milk. So just put in about 1/4 or so of the dry, and then while the mixer's going, if you're using a mixer, it's just easy to keep it running. Drizzle in a little bit of the coconut milk, and then we'll just keep alternating until everything's in and it's nice and smooth. Yeah, so Trina is wondering if ghee would work instead of the palm shortening, instead of butter. Totally fine. I think you could actually go even for the ghee and the palm shortening, just because ghee has the lactose, everything's separated in there, so you're taking out some of that butter fat anyways. So ghee has a higher melting point, so I would just go even for the ghee and the, I don't know why I stopped that, ghee versus palm shortening. Okay, so we've got some people asking about substitute for honey. So the thing with substituting out like a liquid sweetener, like a honey or maple syrup, is you're going to have to make up for it in some way. Oh, I forgot to put in my leaveners and my salt, even though I talked about them. So if you're going to try to substitute something like 100% stevia, first of all, by the way, I always am a little bit leery of those things like stevia and monk fruit, because they all have added ingredients in them. A lot of them have sugar alcohols. So if you're going to do something like that, make sure you're getting 100% stevia powder, or you're grinding up stevia leaves. That's your best bet. And then you're going to need to accommodate somehow for that liquid. So whether it's, you can try extra coconut milk, you can try maybe an extra egg. I haven't tried it, so I don't know for sure. And kind of the same thing, the coconut sugar, if you can try to substitute out your favorite granulated, that could work too. But unfortunately, without testing those, I can't vouch for it for sure, because it can drastically change the texture. Alrighty. Yes, so Audra's wondering if I use Tropical Traditions honey. You guys can always see all of my favorite brands that I use and that I test all of my recipes with. on my shop page, shop.againstallgrain.com. But yes, the Tropical Traditions honey, that's what I was talking, that's what I showed you. That's my favorite. It's just so delicious. It's a Canadian honey, and I buy it in this huge, like 12-pound vat that is just amazing. We use it for everything. Okay, so this is what our batter is looking like. Let me just show you. It's pretty thick, which is great because it makes it easy to spread into a really nice thin layer. The thinner, I think, the better with these, only because that's the traditional kind of classic ice cream sandwiches. It's much more ice cream than it is chocolate. So you really want that good ratio. I will say though, it is a bit difficult to work with before you freeze it. It's just a little bit of a crumbly kind of delicate cake, which is what makes it so great. And it's what makes it so great once it's frozen. So you're not like trying to gnaw through the cake part, because once it's frozen, it actually stays really soft, which is really nice. It just ends up like fully melting in your mouth. All right, so I actually have the cakes already frozen for you guys. I'm gonna get this one into the oven and then I'm gonna show you. I wanted to make sure that you guys could see kind of the full process, so we did a little bit of pre-prep. What? Yeah, studio magic. Okay, so I have a stainless steel baking sheet here. You don't necessarily need a rimmed one because it doesn't really spread much when it's in the oven. Just make sure you give yourself a tiny bit of space on the edges for it to spread out, and more than anything so that you can get it out of the pan easily. So we're just gonna put that all out there. Yes, Vicky is asking if I have a non-dairy chocolate milk. I sure do. It is in my Eat What You Love cookbook, and just in case when you're flipping through, it's in the snacks chapter, and it's right next to the homemade animal crackers. Sometimes I think people might miss it because they're both, or homemade animal, I'm gonna have to look. Maybe it's not next to the homemade animal crackers. We photographed it with that, I remember that. Anyways, people sometimes scan past it because it's a very short recipe for chocolate milk. But yes, I do have a dairy-free chocolate milk. And also, by the way, in the backs of my books, just so you know, in case you can't find something, I have these, I think, incredibly handy photo indexes. And so if you're ever looking for something and you can't remember where it was or what chapter it's in, there's thumbnail pictures of every recipe in the book, and they're in the back of the book as an index, so you can like quickly look up what page it's on. Okay, so you can use a rubber spatula, but I think an offset spatula is easiest for this. By the way, also a little trick that I didn't do, but if you put a bit of oil or butter or palm shortening or something down on your parchment, it'll help just kind of stick the edges so you don't have to hold it down. But once you get this spread, it's not really anything you have to be concerned about. So, yeah, it does. So Kathy's wondering if a Silpat will work. It definitely does. Sometimes I find that my grain-free baked goods stick more to Silpats than they do parchment, but it's obviously a much more sustainable option. I use that for roasting a lot, a Silpat, because you don't need nearly as much oil. So for dinner time, I do that. I have not tested this particular cake on a Silpat, so just beware. But if you maybe grease it ever so slightly on the bottom, just so you can get this up. Just because, like I said, this cake is pretty delicate before you freeze it. So you just want to make sure that you can easily get it off of whatever you're baking it on. All right, we're almost there. It's just, I get a little like entranced and perfectionist when I'm spreading batter and chocolate. This one, that looks smaller than, what did I say in the recipe? I think I gave you the actual measurements in the recipe, so just look up what I said. I can't remember. Honestly, it doesn't really matter what size, as long as you have it big enough and you can get it thin. So basically what we are wanting to do is spread this to about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 inch thick. And you just want a big rectangle so that you can cut it. So I'll show you what I did once I froze it. Just a sec, I'm almost there. I really like it to be even, because if not, you're gonna get, I mean, it doesn't actually matter, but maybe because I photographed them, I'm more careful. But if you're not even across, then you're gonna end up with like really thick parts of your sandwiches and then really thin parts. So I just spent maybe a little too much time. Okay, I'm done. It's actually, I was gonna say it's kind of like therapy. You get these like perfect little swirls on the top. All right, I'm done. Okay, I'm gonna throw this in the oven, 350 degrees, and then let me show you one already baked. And actually, I just realized that I'm gonna use this offset spatula. Hold on just a second. Great, 13 by 18 rimmed baking sheet. You can use a bigger one if you have it. I wouldn't go smaller than 13 by 18. And actually, I think that one's slightly smaller. I'm gonna have to measure that one when we're done here. Okay, so there's that. I wanted to show you guys, I had to use plastic wrap because these were currently in use, and I guess that means I need to get more, but I've been using these beeswax wraps lately. We're just trying to reduce any single-use plastic that we can. There's obviously so many things where you just have to, so anything that I can, I've been trying to do. We have reusable like Ziplocs now that we use, and then those have been awesome. You can cover bowls with them, you can wrap stuff like this. They're great. And the small ones, I'm individually wrapping once we're done getting these frozen and we cut them into the cookies. I'm individually wrapping them so that we can just grab them easily as well in that beeswax. All right, so when you pull your cookie from the oven, you're gonna let it cool completely. And then I like to freeze the cookie side before I try to put the ice cream in. So this is like a day process. You just kind of want to get it done in advance. It just makes spreading the ice cream a lot easier. You don't get as many crumbs. It doesn't break apart. It just makes it way easier to handle. I can actually like pick these up and put them on top of each other. When they're not frozen, it's not as easy. So I have like 20 different recipes for homemade dairy-free ice cream. I would use, which I actually made yesterday, but didn't have time to freeze it enough to be able to do this, but the French vanilla ice cream in my first cookbook. There's also mint chip, which is Asher's. He's sitting over there. Asher's favorite. That's what he wants me to do next time. I have, oh my gosh, so many different kinds. You could do my new coffee ice cream. Really have endless opportunities and put whatever ice cream in the middle you like best. Get a spoon. Questions? Any other questions? Great. All right, so let your ice cream soften slightly so that it's spreadable. Oh, I was gonna say, I'm not using homemade, obviously. I'm using this cashew milk version. It's the cleanest ingredient list that I've seen, although there's still some things in it that I wouldn't normally use, but that's all right. It's the best tasting and the best texture, in my opinion. This one's a little hard. Let's see if this one's, I should have taken these out and put them at room temperature while I was making that batter, but I didn't, and I forgot. So I would set them out on your counter for, depending on how frozen they are and how solid, and everybody's freezers are a bit different, but you want them to be spreadable but not melted. And so, okay, this is not gonna spread, but I can give you guys the gist of it. Let's get that all piled on there. Okay, so vanilla ice cream, obviously. And then just try to spread it. No, told you, definitely should have let this sit. It's not bad, but it's not gonna go on as easy and in much of a single layer as I would like it to. I would, if I wasn't live with you guys right now, I would just walk away from this and let it sit for about 10 or 15 minutes so the ice cream was more spreadable, but I'm not gonna make you sit here and watch that. So we're just gonna leave it as a pile, and I'll just give you the basic understanding. Spread it till it's a thin layer. Go all the way out to the edges because you are gonna be cutting these, so you want ice cream going through the entire thing. And really it's up to you about how thick of a layer of ice cream you want it, but I give you an amount in the recipe. I'm gonna go a little on the heavier side because who doesn't like more ice cream? Who doesn't love more ice cream? And then once you smooth this all down and flat, all you have to do is just take this guy and put it right on top like that. And then I like to wrap it all together and freeze it again for at least a couple of hours just to firm up that ice cream that's kind of melted. It just makes it easier to give cleaner cuts of the sandwiches, and then either eat them right then and there, or slice them into your, so I usually slice across and then across. So you're gonna get 1, 2, you're gonna get about 8, depending on how thin you spread your cookie. So then I cut them into the bars and individually wrap them. Like I said, that beeswax stuff is awesome, or even those stasher, I'll show you guys our stasher bags. These are, we've loved these recently. So you can also like throw them into one of these and just have them in the freezer for people to eat. Another thing, I just kept these like super simple, super classic, like the kind you get from the ice cream truck. But you can also coat, once you cut them, you can coat the edges where the ice cream shows in little mini chocolate chips or sprinkles. Those are kind of just fun little additions that you can do and let your kids help. But yeah, that's it. If there's not any other questions. Oh, great.
So Brianna actually has a good question. She's wondering,
Mm-hmm.
she's wondering, she can tolerate dairy, so is there any good dairy-filled ice cream you'd like to recommend?
Yeah, so what was the name? Christine?
Brianne.
Oh, Brianne. Brianne's wondering about clean dairy-filled ice cream that we can recommend. So I haven't found a dairy ice cream that doesn't use refined sugar, but one of the ones that we buy, because my kids can do some dairy too, is Strauss Organic. That's just the brand that I love the flavors. It's very clean in terms of ingredient like amounts. There's only maybe 4 ingredients or so. It's not super heavy and there's not gums and things like that. And I like organic for dairy, specifically grass-fed, because that means that the cows aren't being fed any grains and definitely no GMO or soy, and so that's typically what we choose to do. If you want, I don't know if it's available everywhere, but I have a favorite sheep's milk dairy ice cream that I love and that I can actually tolerate. I can't do cow's milk, but I can do sheep's. And it is called, what is that called? I can see the package in my head too. Anyways, I'll have to tell you guys about it later. It's delicious. Okay, we're getting there.
Question, not on topic of this, but still on topic of ice cream. Asks for
Uh-huh.
icy mint chocolate chip ice cream. Any tips on making it less icy, more creamy?
So tips, my version. So tips on making my mint chip ice cream less icy and more creamy. Honestly, I've never had it turn out icy. I think there's a couple things. One, make sure that you're using the avocado in that recipe. That's from this first book. That is what really helps make it super creamy. And then 2, make sure that your mixture is really chilled before you put it into your ice cream mixture or ice cream mixer. That is typically what can cause that crystallized kind of icy texture of ice cream, because if it's warm and you put it into the ice cream mixture, just ice crystals form a lot better. And then 2, when you put it into your refrigerator, really put the whatever you're covering it with, press it down directly onto the surface of the ice cream. I found that helps as well, because it doesn't allow any condensation or like any liquid to build, and that's usually what also causes that icy texture, is kind of like a freezer burn. We're getting there. I'm like, this is kind of similar. I'm just gonna keep talking and spreading this. It's getting softer and softer as I work it. Okay, so a general question, why don't I follow the AIP diet? So I typically will kind of go in and out of AIP if I'm feeling symptomatic. AIP, by the way, is a stricter version of paleo, where it doesn't include nuts and seeds, eggs, nightshades, things like that. I don't find that it's necessary for me all the time. I also, when I am symptomatic, I can't eat anything raw, so that is somewhat problematic with AIP for me. But I just have found that I have kind of a system and a combination of a few different things, AIP, GAPS, paleo, that work best for my body. And that's kind of what I've always told people. Also, AIP is not meant to be a forever diet. It's meant to be a thing that you're on and allows your body to recover from inflammation and allows your gut to heal. And then really you should be able to add things back in over time. Again, everybody's different, but I did AIP for quite some time, or something similar to it, with my functional medicine practitioner. It wasn't exactly AIP. And then we were able to start adding things back in over time. So, okay.
Also, a lot of people were giving you tips on how to spread it. So microwaving the ice cream, dipping your spreader in hot.
Hot, yes. So we try not to use microwave. Also with ice cream, microwaves are very dangerous. You go like 1 second too long and you have soup, and you will not be able to spread it, and you won't be able to close up your sandwich, and it's gonna all leak out the sides. So my favorite thing is just to let it, I mean, you saw it basically get soft enough for me to be able to work with it pretty quickly there. Hot, same thing, unfortunately. That works really well for scooping ice cream scoops, but with a hot spatula, you're gonna end up getting more melty. That's just gonna really end up spilling out the sides. So really, honestly, I mean, I've done this multiple times. It's just patience. You gotta just wait. It doesn't take long. But yeah, I mean, it's just easier. Otherwise, you're gonna end up having it everywhere, and that's not good. So I'm just trying to get it out to the edges a little bit, but otherwise we're good to go. So if there aren't any other questions, I'm gonna pop this top on, and then you guys can obviously see on the blog, there you go, how we cut them. This is actually a little too thin of an ice cream layer for me, and that's because half of this one was already gone. I was gonna say, I'm not gonna say who ate it. We'll not name any names in our family, but I made this kind of like fast peach crisp the other night, and I think that's where the ice cream went. So I was gonna say, I think a lot of people did. There's not one single culprit. So yeah, so I'm gonna just pop this in the freezer, just enough that the ice cream is hard, because as soon as you try to put a knife through this with it soft, it's just gonna all go out. So we're just gonna pop this in the freezer, and then we'll cut them into our squares, and that's it, you guys. If you have any requests for what we make next week, whether you're watching this live right now and just wanna leave it in the comments, or you're going to view this on IGTV tomorrow or YouTube, please leave us requests in the comments about what you'd like us to make next week, and we'll add them to the list. We have so many things that we want to make for you. Again, one more thing, just in case you joined late, Ryan and I are doing a live Q&A, kind of ask us anything, tomorrow night at 8 p.m. We already took a bunch of questions in advance, but we will be there live, so you can still ask questions in the comments.
The people that are viewing right now, that's July 16th.
Oh, yeah, that's a good thing. If you're not viewing this live, I'm talking about Thursday, July 16th. We will be there at 8 p.m. live. We'll go both on Facebook and Instagram. All right, guys, thanks for joining us. We will see you later. You want it now? It has to freeze first.